My dear friends, you have heard the tale of Jack and the Beanstalk, a story whispered by firelight, a tale of a boy, a beanstalk, and a giant in the clouds. But what if I told you this is no mere children's story? What if I told you it is a mirror of the soul's journey, a parable older than the stones of Jerusalem, older than the songs of David, older even than the first words etched in clay? This is a story of courage, of temptation, of grace, and of the eternal search for what lies beyond. Let us walk together, as pilgrims, through this ancient tale, and uncover the divine truths hidden within its humble roots. Come, let us climb the beanstalk, not to steal gold, but to seek wisdom, to find the face of God in a story told for millennia. In a small village, where the earth was weary and the winds carried the weight of want, there lived a widow and her son, Jack. Their home was a fragile shelter, their table often bare, their only treasure a single cow, whose milk had long sustained them. Yet, as the seasons turned, even this last gift of providence dwindled. The widow, with a heart heavy yet trusting, turned to her son and said, "Jack, take our cow to the market. Sell her that we may live." My brothers and sisters, how often do we find ourselves in Jack's place? In moments of scarcity, when the world seems to offer no more than dust, we are called to act, to trust, to step forward into the unknown. Jack's poverty was not merely of bread or coin. It was a poverty of certainty, a poverty of the heart. The scriptures remind us, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Matthew 5 verse 3. Jack's journey begins here, in this humble emptiness, where the soul, stripped of worldly comforts, becomes open to the whisper of God's grace. Jack set out, his heart a mixture of duty and fear, carrying the weight of his mother's hope. But the path to the market is never straight, is it? Life, like faith, is a winding road, full of unexpected encounters. And so it was that Jack met a stranger, a man whose eyes held the glint of mystery, whose voice spoke of wonders unseen. This stranger did not offer Jack silver or gold, but something far stranger, a handful of beans. "These are no ordinary seeds," he said, his words weaving a spell of possibility. "They are magic, destined to grow beyond the earth, to touch the heavens." Jack, young and full of dreams, felt his heart stir. He traded the cow, the last anchor of his earthly security, for these small, unassuming beans. Oh, my friends, how often do we stand at such a crossroads? The world tempts us with what is safe, what is known, silver coins, a full table, a life without risk. But God's call is different. It is the call of Abraham, leaving his home for a land unseen. The call of Mary, saying fiat to a mystery she could not fully grasp. Jack's beans are a symbol of faith, a faith that seems foolish to the world, a faith that trades certainty for promise. When Jack returned home, his mother's anger was fierce. "Foolish boy," she cried, casting the beans out the window into the dark earth. She sent him to bed, hungry and scolded, the weight of her disappointment heavy upon him. Yet, in that moment of rejection, something sacred was at work. The beans, though discarded, were not dead. They were waiting, as all seeds wait, for the moment of divine unfolding. Let us pause here, dear ones, and reflect. How often do we cast aside what seems worthless, only to discover later that God was planting something new? The prophet Isaiah tells us, "For as the rain and the snow come down from heaven, so shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty." Isaiah 55 verses 10 to 11. Jack's beans, like God's word, were a promise waiting to sprout. In the silence of the night, while Jack slept and his mother wept, a miracle stirred in the earth. From the discarded beans, a great beanstalk rose, its tendrils twisting, coiling, piercing the clouds themselves. By morning, it stood as a ladder to the heavens, a living bridge between earth and sky. Jack, awakened by the strange light filtering through his window, gazed upon it with wonder. His heart, so recently heavy with shame, now burned with curiosity, with courage, with a longing to climb. This beanstalk, my dear friends, is more than a plant. It is a symbol of the soul's ascent, a reminder of Jacob's ladder, where angels ascended and descended between earth and God's presence. Genesis 28 verse 12. It is the call to rise above our fears, our failures, our smallness, and to seek the divine. Jack, in his boldness, chose to climb, step by step, higher and higher, until the world below faded into mist and a new realm opened before him. At the top, he found a land strange and vast, where the air shimmered with mystery. A great stone castle stood before him, its walls towering like the gates of a heavenly city. Jack knocked, and the door opened to reveal a woman, tall as a mountain, her eyes kind but wary. "Go back," she warned. "My husband is a giant, and he devours those who trespass." Yet, seeing Jack's hunger, her heart softened. She welcomed him, fed him bread and cheese, and gave him a place by the fire. Here we see the first glimpse of grace. This woman, though bound to a fearsome giant, chose compassion over fear. She reminds us of the Samaritan who aided the wounded traveler, of the widow who shared her last meal with Elijah. In her kindness, we see the face of God, who welcomes the weary, who feeds the hungry, who shelters the lost. But the ground shook, and a voice thundered, "Fie, fi fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." The giant had returned. The woman, quick and clever, hid Jack in the oven, shielding him from danger. And so, the stage was set for a confrontation. Not of swords, but of wits, of faith, of the human spirit daring to stand in the presence of the mighty. My dear friends, as Jack hid in the shadows of the giant's oven, his heart pounded like the footsteps of the giant himself. The air was thick with the scent of bread and fear, but the giant's wife stood firm. "There is no boy here," she declared, her voice steady as a rock. The giant, grumbling, sat to eat, his great hands piling gold coins into bags, each clink a reminder of wealth beyond measure. And when he fell asleep by the fire, his snores rumbling like distant thunder, Jack saw his chance. Silently, he crept from his hiding place, took a single bag of gold, and fled down the beanstalk, the coins heavy in his arms, yet light compared to the hope they carried. When he reached the earth, he ran to his mother, and for a time their poverty was no more. The table was full, the cottage warm, and laughter returned to their home. But let us pause, beloved ones, and reflect. What is this gold Jack took? To the world, it is wealth, security, the answer to earthly want. Yet, in the light of faith, it is something more. Gold, in the scriptures, is often a symbol of divine grace, of the radiance of God's presence. The psalmist sings, "The law of your mouth is better to me than thousands of gold and silver pieces." Psalm 119 verse 72. Jack's theft, though born of cunning, was also a step toward providence, a reminder that God provides, even through the hands of the foolish, even through the risks we take in faith. Yet, Jack's heart was not at peace. The gold, though plentiful, could not satisfy the deeper longing within him. For the soul, once touched by the mystery of the heavens, cannot rest in earthly treasures alone. And so, Jack's eyes turned upward once more, to the beanstalk, to the clouds, to the call of something greater. Driven by a restlessness that only the heart can know, Jack climbed the beanstalk again. Once more, he reached the castle in the clouds, and once more, the giant's wife welcomed him with kindness. She fed him, warmed him, and hid him when the giant's footsteps shook the earth. "Fie, fi fo, fum," the giant roared, his nose sniffing the air. But again, his wife's quick wit shielded Jack from harm. This time, Jack's eyes fell upon a hen, small and unremarkable, yet miraculous. For every day, it laid an egg of pure gold, a gift that promised endless abundance. When the giant slept, Jack seized the hen and fled, its soft clucks echoing in the mist as he descended the stalk. With this treasure, Jack and his mother would never want again. The hen was a fountain of provision, a living miracle in their humble home. My brothers and sisters, consider this hen. It is not merely a creature of fable, but a sign of God's sustaining grace. Like the manna that fell from heaven for the Israelites in the desert, Exodus 16 verse 4. The hen's golden eggs speak of a providence that does not end, a generosity that flows without ceasing. Yet we must ask ourselves, what do we do with such gifts? Do we hoard them, as the world might tempt us? Or do we share them, as Christ calls us to do? Jack took the hen, but his journey was not yet complete. The soul, though blessed, still seeks more, not more gold, but more meaning, more closeness to the divine. Jack's second climb teaches us that God's gifts are not the end of the journey, but a call to go deeper. The hen, like the talents given to the servants in the parable, Matthew 25 verses 14 to 30, is entrusted to us not for our own gain, but for the building of God's kingdom. Jack, in his youth, did not yet see this truth, but the beanstalk still stood, beckoning him to climb once more. For the third time, Jack ascended the beanstalk, his heart now bold with the memory of past triumphs. The castle in the clouds welcomed him again, and the giant's wife, ever compassionate, hid him from her husband's wrath. But this time, Jack's eyes were drawn to a golden harp, its strings shimmering like rays of sunlight. When touched, it sang with a voice like the wind through sacred groves, a melody that stirred the soul and spoke of eternity. As the giant slept, Jack took the harp and ran. But the harp, alive with its own spirit, cried out, "Master, a boy is stealing me." The giant awoke, his roar shaking the heavens, and gave chase. Jack scrambled down the beanstalk, the harp's song rising like a lament, its notes both beautiful and perilous. The clouds trembled above him, the giant's steps growing closer, each one a drumbeat of judgment.